Alright, I'm gonna read a fan fiction, a Rick and Morty fan fiction. Um, I honestly don't want to do this, but, it's for the freshness. Please kill me. Alright, I gotta get my gamer juice on. Alright, you ready? Because I'm not. Chapter 1. Morty dragged the blade across the inside of his forearm as tears streamed from his eyes. He felt so unloved, so useless, so alone. The only thing he could feel anymore was pain, so he might as well relish it. Relish it. He could use the pain to his advantage, and it made him feel alive. It became the only thing that he needed. And if he began wearing long sleeves, moving a little slower, talking a little quieter, and looking a bit paler, nobody said a word. Morty doubted that any of them even noticed. His mom was too busy working overtime and sleeping ever since the divorce. She hardly looked at him anymore. Summer was busy with her life, college, and new friends. She didn't have time to be around him. Jerry was moved out, and he only talked to Morty to guilt trip him into talking to Beth. Rick never cared. He made it clear that he never cared. Morty watched blood stream carelessly down his arm from the various cuts that he thought about his grandpa. That he always valued the older man's attention. All Morty wanted was for Rick to show him some sort of affection. Every pat on the head and every word of praise warmed Morty up and filled him with a sense of accomplishment. But Rick almost never did that, especially not lately, so Morty coped by hurting himself, by making himself feel something other than internalized turmoil. He wiped the blood off his arm with a tissue and hid the knife back under his pillow. He rubbed his face to get rid of the wetness in his tears. It was time for dinner, whether there was anything cooked or not. Morty felt dizzy as he sat down at the kitchen table. The loss of blood is giving him an almost euphoric sense of lightheadedness that made his head swim. This only happened when he cut him deeper than usual. This was like cutting was his drug, and the after effects were as high. He lazily sat at dinner in silence, Summer and Rick chatting about some random things while Beth drank wine and watched. She was always drinking wine. Morty guessed that she only drank wine because it was classy front to developing her alcoholism. At least Rick didn't approve of it. Not like he'd ever say anything, though. All he did was glare at her when she poured each glass and give disapproving looks every time she took a drink. Morty felt his stomach churn at his thoughts, thinking about how forgotten his mother was becoming, and the fact that Rick would just sit back and watch. It made him feel sick. The thought of throwing up and emptying his stomach of food made Morty's heart race. The pain of vomiting combined with the pain of hunger and soon starvation, it all sounded so appealing to him, even though the thought of such a thing made him feel more alive. After dinner, Morty threw up in his bathroom by digging fingers into his throat. It took him a long time before he actually triggered his gag reflex with enough intensity to make himself throw up. It became easier and easier as he went. He forced himself to vomit until all that came up was acidic bile, and flushed the toilet. He washed the puke off his hands, rinsed out his mouth, and brushed his teeth. His throat burned and his stomach felt sore, and Morty loved it. He had himself another drug, and he was already hooked after one try. He had as he laid in bed, he pondered the consequences that his habits on his health. Cutting would be fine as long as he didn't do dangerously dip. Even if he did, all he would do is die. The thought of dying only procured an indifferent shrug from Morty. It's not like his life was worth living anymore. On one hand, he was too afraid of death to actually do it himself, but if someone or someone else killed him, then he'd be okay with that. Throwing up after eating would have more drastic effects on his health, though he learned all about it from health class in school. Eventually, Morty's body would consume its own fat. His esophagus would be stripped raw from the constant exposure to stomach acid, and his teeth would rot out. But if he just died before any of those happened to him, then it wouldn't exactly matter. Morty didn't know why. He figured that he'd die before he became an adult. Maybe not before his 18th birthday exactly, but before he actually matured. He probably had until he was in his early 20s at the latest. He'd die one way or the other. He didn't just picture himself as an adult within a career family. Such a thing was far gone in Morty's mind, and it was simply impossible. He was asleep before he noticed. Oh, Jesus, here we go. Here's when they start talking. What the fuck, Morty? That was funny. Aren't you ought to know it? Rick lightly punched Morty in the arm, who only shrugged. Yeah, I guess it was. Morty laughed awkwardly. It had been a while since he genuinely laughed. It was almost like he'd forgotten how to be. He, Rick, and Summer were all on the couch watching an alien rendition of Super Troopers. It was an old favorite. Morty's just butthurt because the cadets go caught him a little bitch during PE class, Summer chimed in, not taking her eyes off her phone. Actually, Morty had forgotten about that incident. He was insulted left and right, both at home and at school, so it was nothing new. Yeah, Summer's right. Morty lied, wringing his hands as he stared absently at the TV. You gotta learn to deal with it. Suck it up. Rick, as he pulled his flask from his coat pocket. He took a few gulps before putting it back with a burp. High school, can you be a... You know, Morty, you should just quit school. Quit school. God, I don't want to read this, but I have to. Well, Morty, you like school, don't you? And Summer gave him a pointed look, but Morty only shrugged. I get... wait, no. I guess maybe school isn't... Maybe I should just drop out, Morty said. Summer gave him an appalled look. That's it, Morty. Don't give in to the capitalist agenda that the America's fucked up leaders have put on their people. Rick patted Morty's shoulder and congratulations. Great, Grandpa Rick. Now Morty's going to quit school. Summer rolled her eyes and stood up. Speaking of, I have work I need to do. See you guys later. This is stupid. Summer left, leaving Rick and Morty alone on the couch. They watched the movie silently before Morty had to pee. He stood up too quickly, causing a wave of vertigo to overcome him as his vision went black. He fell against the couch, rubbing his eyes as he tried to regain proper vision. His ears rang, so it took him a while before he had Rick speaking of. Fuck, Morty, can you even hear me right now? Rick sounded annoyed and he frowned at Morty, who laughed again, awkwardly. Yeah, I'm fine. Also, that's an ironic voice impression of him. I'm just trying to kill myself right now. His vision came back, and the ringing in his ears became quieter and quieter. Just stood up too fast, too quickly. He put a hand on the arm of the sofa to support himself as he stood slower this time. He walked rigidly to the bathroom. Morty relieved his bladder, flushed, and washed his hands. He stared at himself in the mirror, hardly recognizing his own reflection. He was no longer the rosy-cheeked boy that smiled easily. He was paler, with faint bags under his eyes and disheveled hair. His body was already receding. Maybe he would end up killing himself, but in the slow way that caused his body to destroy himself. He was depriving himself of everything he needed, after all. He hardly slept. He cut regularly, which caused a constant loss of blood, and he threw up everything that he ate. He wasn't getting any nutrients, and eventually his body would run out of fat to feed on, leaving only his organs. He'll be consumed from the inside out. That's it. I'm actually happy that's over. But, I really hope this is over. I don't want the fanfiction. You know what, I'm surprised you actually finished hearing this, because...
Are you thirsty? Answer me now!
Yes!
Are you a gamer?
Yep.
Do you know what Mountain Dew is?
What?
It's a gamer juice!
Holy! I gotta get that. How much is it?
Only $5 billion!
I'll take a pack!
Here you go!